I guess the big story from like the last week, right, has been the Hewlett-Packard guys, right? Acquisition-y guys, you know. You would have read about this story, I'm sure. You had Mike Lynch and then the other guy, I forget his name now. But they sold their company to HP. They sold it to HP for a rumored $11 billion for their company. It was called Autonomy. And a year later, Hewlett-Packard had to write it down to, I think it was $3 billion. Astronomical loss almost immediately after buying it. And so HP were very unhappy about this, and they sued the guys, right? There's a civil case, but they also reported them to the authorities because they felt like it was, corporate fraud or something. And then the prosecution fell to pieces, and they got off with full acquittals, free. But the civil case went through. They were both found to greater or lesser extents liable for some sort of corporate fudgery, corporate skullduggery, tomfoolery. And so then they were going to have to cough up, I think it was about $3 billion they were found liable for. So they walk out of the prosecution free, acquitted, but they are found guilty, sort of like in a civil case. Bit similar to OJ, right? $3 billion. So they're not going to jail, but they do get the bill, the $3 billion bill. Oh, and one of the other guys, like I think it's a CFO or somebody from finance, he was also in the prosecution like earlier this year or late last year, and he did go to jail. He was found guilty. So there's obviously something to it. Something's happened here. If one guy's gone to jail, the rest of them are on the hook for $3 billion. But then anyway, in the same weekend, Mike Lynch's yacht capsizes and 5 people die, I believe. And then concurrently, at the same time, the same weekend, the other guy who was acquitted, I really should have researched his name now, just called him like the other guy, tragically the other nameless individual. But this guy who was also acquitted at the same time and also on the hook for the $3 billion, he, the same weekend as Mike Lynch's thing capsizes, he then gets hit by a car while he's out jogging in a road accident. They both die in the same weekend. What are the chances of both of those events happening on the same weekend to 2 people who knew each other, who were both recently acquitted? Like, when you add all of these variables together, what are the chances? What are the chances? And do you know what? I found a mathematician quoted, I think it was in the Times, and they said that the chances of these 2 guys both being acquitted for the same crime and then dying this close after the acquittal, and both of them dying on the same weekend, the chances of that happening are 4 billion to 1. I mean, do you understand? Does anybody listening to this or watching this understand how unlucky you would have to be for these things to happen to you and your friend like this right after acquittal? Robert Kardashian, i.e., Kim Kardashian's father, was one of O.J. Simpson's lawyers. He learned about DNA, because this was in like 1995, that trial, right? He learned about the existence of DNA and the chances that it would have to be for O.J. Simpson to be innocent and for them to just happen to find his DNA in the places that they found it. He learned about DNA and the chance, and that's what he had doubts about. That's when he doubted that OJ could possibly be innocent. And that was 1 billion to 1. A billion to... In the dramatization of it, in The People versus OJ Simpson, the footage of David Schwimmer playing Robert Kardashian is like, he looks so tormented in it. He's like, I mean, Chris, they said 1 billion to 1. 1 billion to 1 chance that OJ's innocent. It's just... I have doubts. He's so tormented by 1 billion to 1 chance. This is 4 billion. 4 billion to 1 chance that this is just a wild coincidence that just happened to happen to these two friends who were both acquitted almost immediately after, and they both die in the same weekend. 4 billion to 1 is what the maths guys are saying with this. So yeah, there's that possibility, isn't there? There's that possibility that it is all just a coincidence. It's a possibility. It could happen. Or, the other significantly more likely scenario is that, they got off looting Hewlett-Packard and somebody wanted them dead for it. Or they knew some of these two guys, maybe they knew something. Or they were both now free to continue working on something else that somebody else didn't want them to be free to work on, right? Or maybe, maybe they got off, but they still had to pay the $3 billion back to HP. You don't want to have to liquidate your investments, your asset. I don't know, maybe you fake your own death. That's another possibility here. He wouldn't be the first Englishman to try faking his own death with a boat, right? Canoe John? Anyway, my point is, right, yes, I do have a point. Just bear with me here. My point is, what is my point? My point is, faking your own death, it might seem outlandish. It might seem drastic. It may come off like something out of a spy thriller or whatever. Like it's fictional. You have to have made that up, Aid. Come on. Live back in reality, please. And equally, a plot by what? What am I suggesting? Somebody like MI5 or the CIA or Hewlett-Packard even themselves. That they've tried to kill both of these individuals. That might seem a bit outlandish. A bit like a spy thriller. A little bit far-fetched also. But even in accepting that both of those do sound outrageous. And they do, they do. Both of them, MI5, CIA, HP assassinating these people, or them faking their own deaths so they can keep the $3 billion. I know both of it sound like, all of it sounds ridiculous, but I promise you, both of those scenarios are astronomically more likely than the other one. That it's all just a wild coincidence. 4 billion to 1.